No, Annie, or fifth.
We invite all who care to join us in standing with a recitation of the Lord's Prayer, followed by a moment of silence. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. It is now 7 o'clock. Shelby City Council meeting is called to order. Please remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Seated, please. Roll call, please, Mr. Crum.
Mr. Robb. Here. Mr. Roberts. Here. Mr. Gates? Mr. Martin?
Here.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Here. I will now entertain a motion to excuse Councilmember Gates.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin to excuse Councilmember Gates. Discussion? I think we all know that Mr. Gates is out of state here this evening and not possible to be with us. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yea.
Mr. McLaughlin? Yay. Mr. Robb?
Yea.
Mr. Roberts? Yay.
That motion to excuse passes. I'll now entertain a motion to dispense with the reading of the journal from the July 5th, 2022 meeting.
So moved.
Second. We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin to dispense with the reading of the journal from the July 5th, 2022 meeting. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yea.
Mr. McLaughlin? Yay. Mr. Robb?
Yea.
Mr. Roberts? Yay.
That motion to dispense passes. We now come to the time for public comment. If anyone has a public comment they would like to make, or if you want to reserve time on the agenda to make comment later on, we would invite you to come to the podium and state your name and address, either make your comment or reserve time. Do you want to reserve time when we come to the annexation piece of legislation, if there is comment to be made or question to be asked?
Sure.
Fairly simple. You just want, there's nothing. You just want to state your name and address, and then if something comes up, that way you'll be able to pick and chime in on
Sure.
it. So just come on up now, if you would, please. State your name and address.
My name is Heath Humphrey. Address is 541 South Gable Street.
5 what?
541.
541, so, okay. And it's concerning the legislation at that address. Okay. 43.
43.
Resolution
43.
Okay, very good.
Thank you.
Gotcha, okay, thank you. Mr. Martin.
Actually, Mayor, would move with unanimous consent to consider resolution number 43, 2022, accepting the annexation of certain parcel of land known as the Humphrey annexation in Sharon Township, Richland County, to the city of Shelby.
Mr. Martin, by unanimous consent, would like to, for the sake of the Humphreys, move to resolution number 43 right now, so that they can get on with their evening. Are there any objections to that, moving forward to that piece of legislation? Hearing none, Mr. Crum, would you read resolution number 43, please?
Look at that page. Resolution number 43, 2022, accepting the annexation of a certain parcel of land known as the Humphrey annexation in Sharon Township, Richland County, to the city of Shelby.
Resolution be taken up and passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin for the passage of resolution number 43, 2022. Discussion. Mr. Geis.
This is just the last step in this process. Council did pass 3 resolutions a while back. commissioners have approved it. We did have to sit on it 60 days after it was received. That ended yesterday, so this would be the last step. If approved, this property would be in the city in 30 days.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Resolution number 43, 2022 passes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now back to page 1 of our agenda. Still under public comment. We have made arrangements. I don't think we actually needed Mr. Bryant McAfee here this evening for the omni-fiber legislation, so that we can go on through public comment beyond that. Is there any other public comment, Mr. Martin?
I just want to clarify, we made the decision that it would be best for him to present in person to the Utilities and Streets Committee. And so he chose to do that in lieu of being here this evening. But he is available if we need him for questions.
Very good. Good point. Thank you. Any other further public comment? I'll move forward then to reports from standing and special committees. The Finance and Personnel Committee met without Councilman Gates, so Mr. Martin has the report this evening.
Thank you, Mayor. Our finances are awesome. That's it for my comment.
Here, here. Thank you. Any comments or questions? Oh, it's necessary. Let's move on to utilities.
Utility streets are awesome. Let's do this.
Roll.
No, I do intend to be brief, though, not quite that brief, but I do intend to be brief. So if we can go to the back page like we are wont to do. What you are seeing is not indeed a typo. We did crest another $1.2 million month in our income tax. 900,000 of that was due to a quarterly report from a business, and so we are approaching 4 million, and our entirety for years that we budgeted in our appropriations was 4.3. So we are well on the way on that. So the question that we had asked about that was, we know that because of the potential for large refunds due to these quarterly reports, we kept additional amount into our 220 income tax. We're going to keep that at the same level. We're not going to increase that. So we're going to go ahead and disperse that out. And it did, the success, the strength of that did lead to a couple of questions, and I had asked that by the next Finance Committee report that we could have from the administration a plan on two different things. One, rainy day fund, what would that look like? And then also possible safety services levy to make sure that we can plan for the eventuality where we will need a new fire station and where we will need a new justice center. I understand it's many years off, but I'd rather be planning now than put that at the feet of my grandkids. So the administration seemed to be favorable to that, so we can anticipate that. All right, to the front page. As we can see, the general fund is in very good shape. Cash balance of $2.3 million. That still does not include the local fiscal recovery fund that will be transferred to that as well. They had said that day, basically the day of the meeting, that we had gotten the balance of that. So that will be transferred over as well. So we can anticipate another healthy general fund there, which again perpetuated what I was saying. When you have excess in the account, the question is, okay, well, how are we going to spend it? Which is fine, and it's a well and good question to have, but I would rather be deliberate in our spending and not just go willy-nilly because we happen to have excess at this point. Because we know very well, from those of us who've been on council for a while, that excess can turn to famine pretty quick. So, so I won't belabor that point. The sewer fund, there's legislation tonight, a couple pieces of legislation to address that. The sewer fund is, I don't want to say in dire straits, but it's to a point where we need to have a legislative fix to it. And so two pieces of legislation we're looking at is transferring $50,000 of coronavirus funds, and then also instituting a rate hike in the sewer fund. And we'll talk about that more when the legislation comes. The other problem child is the water fund, and but at this point it is rising to a certain level. We don't feel we need to have legislative fixes quite yet. So we're still eagle-eyeing it, but that is it. The total amount in the treasury, we can skip forward a couple pages. I hope people don't mind me not belaboring all the numbers here. You guys are perfectly capable of reading all the stuff there. The treasury is 18.167 million, and $18,167,140.57. On the personnel side, see if I can actually read my own handwriting. And I cannot. All right. Director of Nursing is going to be coming on board around August 1st. Bob Dean is going to be coming on board. The note is here, hopefully soon. Do we have a more definitive date at this time?
Planning on, I've sent out an email, but all the paperwork has come through, so hopefully we're going to have a working meeting on Thursday and get engaged next week.
Wonderful. Water distribution is going to have new personnel early August, and firefighter, paramedic, we're down to the final two candidates there. And looks like something about a police officer early something. Can you help me out?
We're still in the final stages of, we have an officer kind of in the queue, but we're waiting on the last couple, I think the psychology part of it, and also anyways, yes, we've got the last couple tests.
Thank you for the assist on there. And then water treatment plant entry level, we are going to have someone sometime in August. So that's it for personnel. So yeah, here it is, my report.
And the firefighter, to add to that, we are preparing a offer of letter of employment. Offer of employment letter, I should say. So that should be coming soon. So are there any other comments or questions for Mr. Martin in regard to his report and on behalf of Councilman Gates? Mr. Martin?
Mayor, I move that the combined financial statement and cash investment reconciliation statement dated 6/30/2022 be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts that the combined financial statement and the cash investment reconciliation statement dated June 30th, 2020 be received, placed on file, and posted to the city website. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
That motion passes. Thank you, Councilman Martin. We now come to the Utilities and Streets Committee. Councilman Martin.
All right. Seems like I've been here before. All right. So I'm not going to belabor this on sewer fund balance. If people have additional questions, we can get to it when we get to the legislation. Essentially, we've been losing money every year for basically the last 3 years in sewer fund. We've tried different things, whether it be leachates, sludge removal, et cetera, and it just isn't getting us anywhere. And so we are going to have two pieces of legislation, like I stated earlier, to get us back on equal footing. The issue, really one of the main issues that I brought up during the meeting regarding this is I wanted to make sure that our proposed rate was going to be enough. I would much rather get to the point where we need to cut rates in 5 months to have to do another rate increase. Mr. Insman was 90% sure-ish, 85% sure. He's all right. This is why I never should go with percentages. All right, anyways, we're pretty confident that this will get us to where we need to get, at least in a much better situation than we are now. Moving from the current rate of 0.13514 to 0.16550. That essentially, to bring it to layman's terms, accounts for around $2 a month per person on average. It's actually a little bit less than that, but I rounded up. So that's really what we're looking at, and that will get us into a pretty good stead here. So our average revenue loss per year has been around $115,000, and this gets us basically to break even on that point to where we can start building. Like I said, we can talk about that more if it needs to when we rise. We did have Brian McAfee, Director of Business Development of OmniFiber, come and give us a presentation. This is something we've been working on quite a while, and so if I seem in an unusually good mood today, it is because I think that this is a banner day for the city of Shelby. OmniFiber is going to be making over a $5.5 million investment in our city. They're looking at around August 15th as a construction kickoff, assuming everything goes well tonight, we pass legislation with the pole attachment agreements. A couple things. If you go to the website, you can actually sign up for more information. And they're looking at doing press releases over the next couple days to explain this. But essentially, every resident will be able to have fiber to home internet at exceptional speeds, at exceptional value. The beginning rate is 500 megabits a second for $55 a month, 1 gigabit a second for $65 a month, 2 gigabits a second for $75 a month. That includes no installation fees, and OmniFiber will come to your home and test to ensure that the Wi-Fi will reach every part of your home in their mesh network, and they will give you additional nodes as needed to ensure that you have coverage throughout your house. So they have an extra layer of customer service there. They have the potential to do around 5,000 households, light those up a month. They are cautiously saying that they're going to have the city completely lit up to where everybody can get the service at their house by December. But I think that's a very pessimistic time. I think they're actually aiming for much higher than that. So they're going to start, everything goes well, they're going to start with the underground, people that need underground first, and then they're going to go for the over the wire. We're about 87% over wire. They actually said that the amount of time it takes for them to do the underground pieces, those houses, will match the amount of time it takes for them to do the over the wire for the rest of the city. That's just how arduous it is for that. But yeah, so that's where they'll start, and then they will quickly get throughout the entire city. So it's exciting. Exciting for our resident, the people of the city of Shelby, but also businesses as well. So it's going to spur a lot of development there. So anyways, you can sign up for more information on OmniFiber.com. A couple things that we did negotiate within this. We have, say if something goes wrong, mismanagement, whatever, OmniFiber doesn't do a good job, but they built this $5.5 million network. We do, as City of Shelby, have the right of first refusal on buying that network to ensure that it doesn't go in the hands of an out-of-state interest, an out-of-country interest, or whatnot, that it can actually stay within the citizens of Shelby's hands. Of course, we can opt to not exercise that right, but we do have that right of first refusal. OmniFiber is also offering 2 gigabits per second complimentary service to our park system. So if you were on the football field for the fireworks and about a half hour before you realized your phone wasn't working, like most of us every year, hopefully next year that won't be an issue. Many great things happening. This has been a labor of love for John and I for the last 6 years, and it's nice to see that this kind of investment is coming to our city, because I genuinely believe that our citizens deserve this level of service. So anyways, that was that on OmniFiber. All right, on to other things. Vac truck. Really want to give kudos to Mr. Insman and the service department. They actually brought in different vac trucks for demonstrations to ensure that they have the level of service that they require. I didn't know that lifting bricks was important, but it is. And bottom line, at the end of the day, there was one vendor and one bit of equipment that met the expectations of the service crews. That quoted price came at $469,019.61. They also happen to be the one that gives us the best trade-in value for our current vac truck at around $40,000. The other two, one met the expectations, but the availability wasn't going to be until next year, whereas this one is ready to order and the build will be in October. And then the third option did not meet the expectations of the service crews. So we've had our current vac truck for 20 years, and it's time for an upgrade. But more importantly, I think it's time to we can give them something that's for the next 20 years is going to actually do the job it's meant to do. This is something that is shared by all 3 of the utilities. And so likewise, when you see the certifications, you'll see them come out of all 3 of those utilities. Because it is something that we use, not just for sewer or water like you would assume, but also for electric. So, and that legislation is also before us this evening. Mayor, that is my report.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. Are there any comments or questions from Mr. Martin in regard to his report? Hearing none, we'll move forward then to Safety Committee. Councilman Roberts.
Thanks, sir. Safety Committee met on July 6th. Fire news, we learned that fire protection contract with Sharon Township will be up this year. So at that time, negotiations were to start soon, and I find out tonight that those negotiations have started, and we're pretty close to a deal. So we will, maybe not the next council meeting, but we'll have legislation possibly the council meeting after that, maybe the 2nd in August, and to get that going. Shelby Fire was granted $7,500 from the TC Energy Grant, which is about half of what we hope to get for that. That's going to be for the air packs for the firefighters for breathing apparatus. Another grant that we were awarded $410.56. That's for the seatbelt grant, and it's the reason for it being so low is because there are less people driving, so there's less seatbelt. So that money gets divided up, and that's just the way it is this year. And, so maybe get more people on the road, people not wearing seatbelts, we'll get more money. So let's see here. And Councilor Martin stole a little bit of my thunder. Interviews were to start at that time for a new firefighter, and apparently they have, and we're close on that too. Health Department, there was 3 active nuisance cases with 2 to go to the law director's office, and there's a question, and we'll talk about it more as we go along in Safety Committee. They're repeat offenders for these nuisances, and are penalties stiff enough to deter the repeat offenders? So that's something that we'll be talking about in the future. Moving on to police news, new grant opportunities coming up for the police. So we'll have more information on that in the near future. Shelby Jail passed a full jail inspection. This is the most thorough of the past few due to the pandemic. We had some self-inspections, and even though we passed those, this was pretty, they came in and really looked it over, so, and we passed. So, and again, fireworks were on the, a topic, and it seems like, we talk about cities can opt out of the new state law allowing fireworks, but that's not the case if we're a charter city. And in our ordinances right now, we do have prohibitions for fireworks in more than one area. And also the state fire marshal, and I have, if anybody wants to look, I've got all this, state fire marshal has rules, and to follow his rules, follow his laws, there's probably no place in town where it's legal to shoot off a firework. I mean, it's just, just the setbacks from buildings, how far away people have to be even for farm animals, and how far away you gotta be away from farm animals. It's really, really thorough. So, that's something that, like I said, at this point right now, education is something that we'll have to look at for the citizens, because, and even in this pack here, if anyone wants to look at it, we've got over and over and over again, just on July 4th, calls to the police department, calls to the fire department, and at this time, nothing, nobody was injured, nobody burned anything down, but we're tying up resources, we're tying up police department, police officers, we're tying up firefighters. They have to go out and check this stuff out, and is there something else going on that they should be focusing on instead of having to go out and to these calls. So, because a lot of times you go out there, they shut things off, they're not doing it anymore, and so, it's a wasted trip for our officers. So, like I said, education at this point is what we're going to have to work on. And let's see here. March radios. The March radio project for the dispatchers is done. So we're going to have some training so we can set that up so that can be start using that. And then of course we'll start working on the mobiles and the in-cars and the portables for the officers. And lastly for this, the parks cameras at that point were ordered. I don't know if we're farther ahead on that or not, but at least they've been ordered. So as soon as those come in, I think this comes up. I have a boy at my church every week asking me, when are those cameras going to be up? Because he's a skateboarder. He's over at the skate park, and they tear things up over there. When are those cameras going to go in so we can stop some of this vandalism in the parks? And I want to ask before I say this and everything. If we could, I talk about the fireworks thing, and we want to make sure that we're doing the right thing with this. We want to make sure that we're covered in our ordinances and we're covered by the fire marshal. We think we are, but if we could get a written opinion from the law director, that would go very far for us. And also, some of the cities that have opted out raise their penalties for shooting off fireworks. I said something to Chief Thompson earlier. Fireworks have been illegal in the city limits for as long as I've been alive, and every single year we shoot off fireworks. Is there something that we need to do to make those penalties stiffer on that also, so that we don't, sooner or later it's going to happen. Whether we've had things get burned up or people get injured, it's just going to happen. And if we can stop one of them from happening, that goes a long way. So, and that.
You could write me an email on what specifically you have an opinion you're looking for.
Okay, I will do that.
Help me.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Roberts. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Roberts in regard to his reports? Mr. Martin.
I just, as an addendum, I'm pro-firework member of council here, or I should say more anti-mass hysteria that is completely unfounded member of council here. You know, we got all these things, sky was gonna fall, people were gonna set up fireworks, blow themselves up. Didn't have, to my knowledge, a single injury incident within the city limits. No fire, no nothing. And for all intents and purposes, you know, we could say, oh, it was in our ordinances, but as far as everyone else knew, we had no prohibitions on fireworks going on. Set some off myself, whatever. And, you know, so if we do indeed, and I would like to see a legal opinion on this too, if we do indeed have prohibitions, then I'm for getting rid of them. You're right, our police have more pressing issues than going chasing people or setting off some black cats in a back alley just because someone doesn't like the noise on July 4th. So, you know, let's end the prohibition and, you know, actually revert back to not being nanny state people trying to dictate what people can and cannot do in their own yards.
Thank you. Any further comments or questions? Thanks again, Mr. Roberts. Moving on to reports of city officials, report of the mayor. I will keep this brief. We have a long agenda. Past couple of weeks have been invested in the daily mayoral duties and activities as usual. July 5th, we had the Board of Health meeting at City Hall. We're still awaiting word on accreditation. I think that may come more like August. We're hoping to hear our final positive word then. And as already been mentioned, Miss Jeannie Kubert will start working as our Director of Nursing and Education on August the 1st. That's the plan. On July 6th, I participated in a summer camp reading event at Birdson Park in Mansfield with several other public officials. Every week someone's going to read, actually every day of every week. July the 13th, I joined Chief Thompson and our captains for the final round of interviews for our one open position in the fire department. And that has yielded, we believe, a very good candidate. And then on July 15th, participated with Mr. Hensman and Mr. Geis, a successful bid opening for the utility office building software project. So that's just a little bit of a recap of my report. Any questions for me or any comments? All right, if not, we'll move forward then to Mr. Crum, our Director of Finance.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Martin did a fabulous job of talking about the financials. Thank you for doing that. And I don't really have a whole lot more to report. I will give everyone a word of caution as far as spending. You know, our general fund is pretty high right now. It is sort of a all your eggs in one basket thing. You know, a lot of the reason for that high balance is one particular taxpayer. Tax returns can be amended for 3 years. So we're going to have to be careful for the next few years. And we're going to have to also be careful not to let this money get into just our general operating. You know, we can't count on this money regularly, which is why, as Mr. Martin said, you know, we're going to look into some rainy day funds, some big time capital project, you know, set aside money every year type of funds for these monies, because we could get ourselves into a real pickle if we start counting this on as coming in every year. So that's just my 2 cents worth on it. But that's really all I have today.
Thank you, Mr. Crum. Are there any comments or questions for Mr. Crum regarding his report? Now we'll move on to Mr. Eister, Law Director.
No report, sir.
Okay. Mr. Joe Geis, Project Coordinator.
Thank you, Mayor. Our East Side Square will be opening up tomorrow morning. So they get to do it a lot quicker than what was expected. So they will move, they sent you all an email on the north side of Main Street and start that process. Traffic will be 2 ways going down Main Street for a while, so that's great for everyone. The traffic signals, that crew also got in last week, got everything done, with the exception of the battery backup. Material issues, they won't be in until February. So if the power goes out on both squares, the lights will go dead until the end of those come in February. So you'll notice Sunday, the rest of those on Mansfield Avenue still work, with the battery backups on them. Tech Park culvert is to start next Tuesday. They'll get that done. And paving project, they're gonna start the concrete work. Said either late this week or early next week. So mostly over in the First Ward area, there's a lot of concrete work to do there. So that's all I learned.
Thank you, Mr. Geis. Any comments or questions from Mr. Geis regarding his report? Mr. Martin?
There's just a comment. I found the email that Mr. Guy sent laying out exactly what the next steps were with the Main Street. Very, very helpful. And I posted that on social media, and everyone was like, oh, okay, this is actually what's going on. So, and also being able to be prepared for the fact that we will have another closure, if you will, but knowing that it's coming, and it just, I appreciate it.
Very good, thank you. Any comments, questions? All righty, how about new business? Any new business to be brought before council this evening? Move forward then to unfinished business, the former ice plant property. There's nothing to bring before council this evening. Any other unfinished business? Well, let's roll into legislation, Mr. Crum.
Ordinance number 13, 2022, vacating an alley that runs perpendicular of East Main Street between lots 565, 567, and 85 within the city of Shelby, Richland County, Ohio.
Move the third reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin for the third reading of ordinance number 13, 2022. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Ordinance number 13, 2022 passes its third reading.
Will the ordinance be taken passed?
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 13, 2022. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Yay. Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Ordinance number 13, 2022 passes.
Ordinance number 14, 2022, proposing an amendment to section 46 of the charter of the city of Shelby and submitting such proposed amendment to the electors.
Move the second reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Roberts and a second by Mr. Martin for the second reading of ordinance number 14, 2022. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Ordinance number 14, 2022 passes its second reading.
Ordinance number 15, 2022, amending ordinance number 3, 2022, annual appropriations and declaring an emergency.
Move that the rule requiring that ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts that the rule requiring that ordinance be read on 3 separate occasions be suspended. Discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Motion to suspend passes.
Move the ordinance be taken passed.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of ordinance number 15, 2022. Discussion. Mr. Crum.
This is where I get down on my hands and knees and beg for money. Okay, so there's a few things going on here. I'll just kind of go down through this list. The first one, the 101 TRS 462, transfer miscellaneous $50,000. As Mr. Martin hinted at in his utilities reports, this is to kind of shore up our sewer fund. Last month, we did actually kind of break even for the month. I think we were up $1,200 in the fund, but the fund balance is pretty low, and it will be a while before the rate change takes effect. So we were kind of thinking using sort of the surplus in the general fund due to the excess revenue we got from the ARPA funds to use $50,000 of that surplus, transferred to the sewer fund so that way they can, you know, keep their operations going until the rate effect, assuming council passes it, kicks in. So that's what that line item is. The next 5 transfer line items. That's a good problem to have. Those are out of the income tax fund, essentially with these excess quarterly estimates and such that we've received already. We're about to expend everything we appropriated out of that fund. So if we don't increase these line items, we can't actually take it out and put it into the general fund or the streets funds or wherever they normally go. So this is just procedural to let us use the money that has come in for income tax since it's more than we planned. The rest of these funds, the catch basin, street resurfacing, engineering, and water line replacement, those are more or less, we're kind of taking on some more projects because those various funds are a little healthier this year. But to move those projects along, we need to increase the line items in there. So none of those are things where we really guessed wrong or, you know, our operating costs are high. We just decided to take on a little more than we can do this year, but we'll have to increase those lines accordingly. That's pretty much all I have unless anyone has any questions.
Are there any questions or any further discussion? Everyone understand the transfers? Okay. Ready for roll call?
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Ordinance number 15, 2022 passes.
Ordinance number 16, 2022, amending chapter 1044 sewer charges, section 1044.02, conditions of service rate schedule of the codified ordinances of the city of Shelby, Ohio.
Move for first reading.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. McLaughlin for the first reading of ordinance number 16, 2022. Discussion? Mr. Martin.
All right. I know that nobody, myself included, likes to see rate changes, but the bottom line is necessary for the health of our sewer fund. The utilities are supposed to stand on their own, and we understand that. And the reality is that the sewer fund, with the charges the current way it is, cannot stand on its own. So it necessitates this hike, albeit what I would classify as a moderate to low hike for its effect on someone's bill. But it is necessary for the fund to operate now. It needs to operate. I don't know if anybody has any questions regarding that, but that's where we're at.
Further discussion? But, it may be helpful that, again, you would give that number, this adjustment, what that would be to the average resident as it pertains to this piece of legislation. Mr. Mark.
So if someone consumes 400 cubic feet, which is 2,900 gallons, the current cost of them is $5.41. The proposed cost would be $6.62, which is an increase of $1.21 a month. So if you are over that 3,000, it's about 3,000 gallons. So if you're over that 3,000 gallons, there'll be a little more, a little less. It's kind of the average. But that's kind of that. Again, we have been losing. Our average revenue loss per year was $115,000. This will give us approximately $119,000 a year. So it's not like we're going absorbent. We're trying to just keep that loss, to a minimum, whatever he said was.
Yes, I understand this adjustment will bring us back to an even keel, hopefully, and with some other things happening, keep us on solid ground. Just Mark.
One other thing is that we are looking, for doing this with 3 readings with a possibility of doing an emergency on the last reading, because that would mean that this new rate would go on the September bill without having to wait till the October bill. And the reason for that is that we're looking to transfer that $50,000 to bide us that time, and we'd be cutting it really close on that time if we move this to October. So just giving everyone the heads up, that's kind of what we're looking at. But again, that will be the 3rd reading. We're on the 1st reading.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Mr. Rob?
Well, I'm not a big fan of utilities increases. Especially when you look at your utility bill and you see all the surcharges that go along with the utilities, and then another increase in the base rate. It's not going to be a very popular thing. I'll vote for it tonight. I'm going to have to give this some real consideration over the next couple of weeks as to how I'm going to finally vote. But I'm just not a big fan of looking at this.
Thank you. Mr. Mark?
I completely agree with Councilman Rob. I will say this: our philosophy, and by our I mean City Council with the administration, with Mr. Insman, has always been rate increases are an absolute last resort. And we've certainly seen or experienced other utilities that we come in contact where it seems that rate increases are the first resort. Things are out of whack, let's rate increase, to fix it. That has not ever been, at least as far as I've been a member of council, our philosophy. We're always looking to how can we cut costs, how can we become more efficient, what can we do to, and certainly, as you can see, when your average annual loss is $115,000 a year for the last 3 years, we have delayed this as much as we possibly can. I want people to know that if rate increases do come before City Council, it is not because it is because we have tried every other avenue to ensure that our utility is in good health before bringing it to council. But I definitely understand the weight of it, and I'm not a big fan of it either. This, unfortunately, is necessary.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Mark?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin? Yay. Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Ordinance number 16, 2022 passes its 1st reading.
Resolution number 42, 2022, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to enter into contract change order with Kelston Inc. for the Shelby Streetscape project in the amount of $18,377.14 as an increase and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution to take on pass.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution number 42, 2022. Discussion. Mr. Gaddis.
Thank you, Mayor. You guys all had correspondence with this. Basically what happened is when they bid the project, the 2 suppliers who were listed as the suppliers that can get the prices from or so forth. The one didn't get the price to him. The one that did was for heavy planters instead of a lightweight that was on the spec. So this would be an increase so we could get the lightweight, because we certainly don't want to, once dirt and everything's filled in, trying to have to move those things would be you need a crane that day. So this is gonna be 90% funded by the federal grant, so we would have just the 1,800 and so forth left. So that, in the long run, it's gonna save us, help us throughout the life of these things.
Mr. Rob?
Reading through these emails here, I'm a little confused. It looks like there's a bunch of finger pointing going on here, and I'm just wondering why, you know, if they knew that they got the wrong bid for this, why did they include that in the project bid? And is this the bid for the project that they're yet to start, or one that they've already begun?
Mr. Geis?
So, no, it's for the project, the whole, this, the stuff that's gonna be run downtown.
Okay.
And it's the whole streetscape project. It's all part of it. So they did not receive the bid from the suppliers in time for the bid. And when it came time to it for the lightweight, this would be the extra price.
So they went ahead and bid that part of the project without getting a bid from the supplier?
The suppliers did not supply it to them during that time.
And that part's confusing to me, because why in the world would you put out a bid not knowing what the cost is gonna be?
They used the bid that was given to them from the supplier.
For the wrong
Correct.
product?
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr. Martin?
Yeah, I think that the important piece to take away from this is that if we were to force the hand of getting the heavy planters, what we'd be doing if we didn't accept the change order, those would be a bear as far as maintenance, as far as my understanding. So having the lightweight planters will save us quite a bit, because they do have to be, my understanding is they have to be moved in and put in by crane or similar type vehicle, the heavy planters. So.
Mr. Rob?
Well, looking at the size of this thing, I don't care if it's made out of lightweight concrete or heavy concrete, they're gonna be heavy. So I don't know that that's really all that important, but I did see in one of the emails there where one of the engineers did mention that, so.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Resolution number 42, 2022 passes.
Resolution number 44, 2022, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to enter into a pole attachment agreement with Omni Fiber LLC and declaring an emergency.
Move the resolution taken to pass.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin, and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution number 44, 2022. Discussion? Mr. Martin?
One question that did come up is why this is being done by emergency. The reason being is that Omni Fiber is working with 3 different communities so that we can get, basically we can get this fiber to home quicker to us, moving with these 3 communities. The other 3 communities have already passed their full attachment agreements, et cetera, and so they're, we're playing catch up, so to speak, on that. But this will allow us to get this service to our citizens much quicker.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay!
Mr. McLaughlin? Yay. Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Resolution number 44, 2022 passes.
Resolution number 45, 2022, authorizing the mayor as Director of Public Service to purchase a 2022 Sewer Equipment Company of America 900 Eco 9-yard truck mounted combination sewer cleaner, vac truck, through the State of Ohio procurement state term schedule for the operation of the service department.
Move the resolution taken pass.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts for the passage of resolution number 45, 2022. Discussion? Any questions? Mr. Martin covered it pretty well during his committee report. Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Resolution number 45, 2022 passes. Come to miscellaneous business. Is there any miscellaneous business that you're brought before council this evening? Mr. Martin.
I had mentioned it the last couple city council meetings, but my grandfather passed away, and as my daughter, who's currently in labor, you start to take reflections and realize that life really is fragile, but also it's a blessing. And so, as a constant reminder, I'll just put that out there that don't take those who are around you for granted. They may not be there for long, and also the promise of continuing life is always a blessing for our community. So,
True. May I say, there's great likelihood that I will not be present for the first meeting in August. It all depends on how my return trip from New Jersey goes, but it's likely that I will not be here. I think it's August the 1st. So, Mr. McLaughlin, are you going to be, okay, so just want to give you that heads up, gentlemen. Any further miscellaneous? Mr. McLaughlin.
Now that you said that, I may be absent that meeting for active duty in Dayton.
All right, we'll be in further communication as we get closer. I'll let you talk with my wife. Pardon?
One of you guys better be here. Calls on me next.
So it might be council meetings. I think it goes through the council members. That's when I'm out of the office, of course. We'll have it all planned out. All right. So you talk. It'll work. All right. Any further miscellaneous, Mr. Martin?
I move that council go into executive session for the following purpose: conferences with an attorney for the public body concerning disputes involving the public body that are subject of pending or imminent court action.
Second.
We have a motion by Mr. Martin and a second by Mr. Roberts to go into executive session for the purpose so read. Discussion? Mr. Martin.
And Mayor, you had indicated that Mr. Eister and the chief would be invited in, and you, if this passes.
Chief of what?
Fire chief.
Very good. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Martin?
Yay.
Mr. McLaughlin?
Yay.
Mr. Rob?
Yay.
Mr. Roberts?
Yay.
Council goes into executive session at 7:57.